Fiendsmith is one of the best engines that's ever been released in the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! And it's so good that there's talk of potential hits to the engine only 1 month after its release on the ban list. It's so good because it's accessible by literally any deck. Any deck that can put up 2 effect monsters can make Moon of the Closed Heaven, which can go into Requiem, which can go into the rest of the Fiendsmith package. So, Moon of the Closed Heaven is kind of raises some red flags here. It gives vibes of Nightmare Mermaid back in Orcus format, back in 2019. It kind of does the same thing, and the same thing that Nightmare Mermaid was banned for is justifiably a reason for Moon of the Closed Heaven to be banned. So what happens if it is? We're going to talk about what decks come out on top. We're going to talk about what alternatives exist for very niche decks. And I just want to make sure that we're prepared for this potential hit because they printed this card in as a common for a reason. And I think that reason is they intend to ban it eventually. Maybe it's not this list. Maybe it's in December or whatever. But there's a potential for Moon of the Closed Heaven to be banned. There's also the potential for Fabled Lurrie to be banned because it kind of synergizes so well. It really facilitates the power that drawing one Fiendsmith Engraver provides to a deck. So I think these are the 2 cards that are most likely to be banned, and we're going to talk about each of them. What if they're banned? What alternatives are there? And what might we see change to deck lists after a potential hit to these cards? And what cards should you have at the ready just in case? The first card we're going to talk about is Moon of the Closed Heaven. If Moon of the Closed Heaven goes, then basically if a deck wants to play the Fiendsmith package, they have to draw Engraver for it to be useful. Okay? With a couple exceptions. And those exceptions are decks that can put out light Fiend monsters in engine that will allow you to go into the Fiendsmith package kind of in place of Moon of the Closed Heaven. So let's talk about what those decks are. The first one is fairly obvious and it's been fairly popular of late, and it's the Magical Musketeers deck. This deck is full of light Fiend monsters that basically can go into the Link 1 of the archetype, which is Magical Musketeer Max. Let me pull that out. And then from there we can go max into a Requiem once it's already been used. So this archetype obviously works fantastically well with the Fiendsmith cards. It's already been hyped, people already know about it, and we're ready to go. So why will Magical Musketeers be better if Moon of the Closed Heaven gets banned? Well, because it's going to be one of the only decks that can actually make full use of the Fiendsmith package as is right now. You know, where Snake Eyes or Yubel can all go into Fiendsmith stuff without actually drawing it just because of Moon. Musketeers can do that, and they'll continue to be able to do that after a Moon of the Closed Heaven ban. Let's look at the next deck that is going to be good, and that is going to be the Chimera Fusion deck. Okay, so we have Gazelle and we have Baphomet here, and what these cards can do is search or dump this card, Evil Hero Sinister Necrom. Now this is a Dark Fiend level 5, but you can banish it from your graveyard to special summon an Evil Hero from your deck. And that's why we have Evil Hero Adusted Gold here, which is a light fiend, right? So basically, this whole Chimera engine is going to be able to get you into this light fiend on board. And from here, we're just going to use this Evil Hero Adusted Gold to link one off into a Fiendsmith Requiem, wherever I might have put that card. Okay, so those are the 2 decks that are going to be able to summon out Fiendsmith Requiem without using a Moon of the Closed Heaven. And I think these decks are really going to become popular if Moon of the Closed Heaven goes, because they'll have an advantage over every other deck, and that's that they can summon out Requiem without having to draw Engraver, which is an incredible advantage. Look at how strong the Fiendsmith cards are, and look at what value people place on those cards. Like, I think probably every deck except for Tenpai is playing the Fiendsmith deck, right? So yeah, that kind of wraps up the kind of current, cards that can go into Requiem. Now let's take a look at some of the more obscure ones, okay? And I'm talking very obscure. I'm talking not, there's going to be very niche decks that can go into these cards. Like, for example, there's very niche decks that can search for a Evil Hero Sinister Necrom, right? But there are still going to be other options that could come up and might be worth playing because the Fiendsmith cards are so valuable to include in your deck. The first card I want to talk about is going to be Armades, Keeper of Boundaries. This is a generic level 5 synchro. Now, obviously, there are no decks in the current meta that are really cranking out level 5 synchros, but we might want to keep our eyes on Armades because in the next set, Rage of the Abyss, we have the Mermail cards coming out. They can make level 5 synchros pretty easily. We have the 6 Samurai deck coming out. They can crank out level 5 synchros pretty easily. So it's just a card we want to keep in mind that exists. It's a generic-ish extra deck monster. Of course, it's a synchro. It's not a link, so it's going to be a lot harder to make in general. But there are decks that will be able to make this, and we should keep this in mind, that this is a bridge into Requiem if need be. The next two cards I want to talk about I actually don't own copies of, but there is a generic Link 3 Xyz monster, which is one of the Djinn monsters. That's a Light Fiend. So if you have a rank 3 archetype, for example, like Phantom Knight or something, they can go into the Djinn monster, and then that Djinn monster can be linked off for a Requiem. Okay, so Phantom Knight is a deck that could pop up a little bit in strength relative to the rest of the field because they can put out rank 3s so easily. The next card that I want to talk about is a rank 4 generic. Generic rank 4 needs 2 level 4 monsters, of course, and that's Evilswarm Exciton Knight. Exciton Knight is a level 4 rank 4 Light Fiend monster that if you have a deck that can turbo out level 4 monsters, and they might have some extra on board, then we're going to be able to go into Exciton. And an example of that is going to be Melodious, right? An Ostinato combo ends on Baka plus 2 refrains. And you can go from there into an Exciton. Instead of going for, an Appaloosa play, you can go for a kind of higher ceiling Fiendsmith play, okay? And then there's that new rank 4 deck coming out. I think that one actually locks you into Xyz monsters, so I'm not sure how good that one's going to be in terms of getting you into the Fiendsmith combo. But it's just another idea that we want to keep in mind is that we have Exciton, we have the Djinn monster, and those are potential bridges into the Fiendsmith package. Now let's talk about Fabled Lurrie. What if this card gets banned? Well, if we look at kind of our combo here, our normal combo is going to be, if we have Engraver in hand, we're going to pitch Engraver, search the tract effect, we're going to search a Light Fiend and then have to discard a card. Now what Light Fiend is worth searching, right? Let's say we can search any Light Fiend normal summon that's not Lurrie. Okay, so we can search for a Starfire, discard any random card, and now our normal summon can turn into Requiem. That's far less good than being able to search Lurrie, pitch Lurrie, and then a special summon turns into Requiem because we'll still have our normal summon available to us, right? So that's going to be a significant kind of nerf to the Fiendsmith package splashability. But this will enable decks that don't really use their normal summon. Maybe Kashtira, or maybe, I don't know, some adventure combo brew, right? So we have those kind of decks kind of get a relative bump up by the ban of Lurrie. Any deck that can afford to use a normal summon just to go into a Requiem is going to see a boost. Now the other option that we might see is instead of Engraver searching Tract most of the time, we might see Engraver search Sanct more of the time. And if we just go pitch Engraver, search Sanct, Sanct becomes a token Light Fiend, and then we can go into a Requiem. Now this locks you into only attacking with Fiend type monsters, which is not a big deal at all if you're going first, right? This is only going to matter if you're going second. So we might see Sanct as a potential play going forward if we see a Lurrie ban. So those are the cards that I want you to be aware of, or kind of the concepts I want you to be aware of. If we see Lurrie banned, if we see Moon of the Closed Heaven banned, we could see an uptick in Musketeers and Chimera, and then we have decks like Phantom Knights, we have decks like 6 Samurai that could see a relative rise in strength because of their ability to access a Light Fiend on their own in Engine. If Lurrie gets banned, we're going to see an uptick in decks that don't need a normal summon, such as Kashtira, or we're going to see an uptick in use of Fiendsmith Sanct. Okay, so that wraps up the video concept I wanted to go over today. Hope you guys enjoyed this. Hopefully this was useful, and hopefully get some ideas flowing in your mind, because who knows what Konami's going to do on this August ban list. It might be a big one. We'll see what is going to happen. All right, with that, we'll catch you guys in the next one. We'll see you soon.